I am an observer of people. Now, it's not my job, and unfortunately, I don't get paid for it because I'm really, really good at it. And I think in my next life, I'll come back as a sociologist because they observe people. I learned to observe people when I was just a little girl. I happened to be the youngest of 6 biological children, and my parents were also foster parents. But I was always the youngest, and sometimes we would have 15 kids in the house. So I would hide under the dining room table and watch my older siblings do naughty things. And I wouldn't do them because I didn't want to get in trouble. But then I would step out and I would stir it up a little bit and then go back under the table and watch some more. So being the observer of people that I am, one of my favorite places to observe people is in the American mall. Any mall, any place, it's fun to watch. And food courts, oh my gosh, they're amazing. And I remember one time about, oh my gosh, I think it's been, well, at least 20 years ago, I was sitting in a mall watching people, and I heard a woman, and I could hear her talking, and she was saying things like, what is wrong with me? How could I do this? I could see her emotions on her face and feel her heart and her hurt. And then she said, you know, what you did carries a life sentence. Oh my gosh, I had to know more. So I leaned in to listen. I really wanted to hear. But unfortunately, I couldn't lean in and listen because that woman that day was me. And what had I done to get a life sentence? Well, I had simply bought a size bigger jeans that day. It didn't matter in that moment that my husband and I contributed to the community. We were leaders in our church and in our movements. We contributed financially. I was raising 4 incredible children. I had a successful business. And I had even, with a group of women, started a nonprofit, an NGO in Ethiopia. None of that mattered at that moment. All that mattered at that moment was how much I hated myself. And those jeans that day, although no one else could see it, written on those jeans were the words I was saying to myself of hatred and shame, embarrassment, disgust. It was not my finest moment. So often we do that. We spend so much time hating on ourselves that we forget the rest of the world or what we've done well. About 10 years after that day, I found myself divorced. Well, okay, I didn't actually find myself divorced. I was divorced. And I was, it was a high conflict divorce, and I was kind of glad to be out of there. And one of the things that happened during the time of my divorce was this. I came from a very religious home and a very religious faith upbringing. And I was told through the entire process of this high conflict divorce that there are 2 things that God hates. The first, of course, was divorce. The second, well, I would ask people and they'd say, I don't know, but divorce, he hates that. So at that point, I was divorced. And so I wanted to figure out the other thing that God hated. Well, I knew what I had personally struggled with for so many years. And I thought, well, I'm already on God's naughty list, right? So I might as well go ahead and try out this other thing. So I did it. I ate M&Ms as much as I wanted to. I had them for breakfast, I had them for lunch, I had them for dinner, and I washed them down with a few glasses of wine. I was pretty naughty, huh? The good thing is, or the amazing thing was, that 6 months later I got on a scale and I no longer weighed 265 pounds. 6 months later, I had lost 100 pounds. Now this is not the wine and chocolate diet, although I do advocate it. It's probably the only diet that I approve of. But this is about learning that food is not good or bad, nor are we intrinsically good or bad based on the foods that we consume. I had those 4 beautiful children. Back 20 years ago, they were little. Now they're all grown, and one of them has a grandbaby. Well, my grandbaby, he has a kiddo. And she is, I don't care what you say. She is the cutest grandbaby in the entire planet. And we go on Nana and Maggie dates. She's 4 years old. And this is how it goes. We get in the car, and I say over my shoulder, Maggie dear, where do you want to go today? Oh, Nana, let's go. And it's usually to the park, to the toy store, someplace fun. Well, that day she wanted to go to lunch. Sounded amazing to me. So I said, let's go. Where do you want to go, sweetie? Well, Nana, I really want a hamburger. And then there was a big, deep sigh. And I thought, well, I like hamburgers, let's go. But if her daddy had said no, we couldn't go. So I looked in the back seat and her little face was crestfallen. And I said, well, honey, I love hamburgers, let's go get a hamburger. And she said, Nana, I can't. Last week in preschool, there was a bulletin board and our teacher put good and bad. And hamburgers are on the bad side and grapes are on the good side. So let's go find a place that serves grapes for lunch because I want to be a good girl. This is my granddaughter. I spend my life teaching people that food is not good or bad. But then I went to another place a few weeks later. A friend was getting married, she and her new husband for the second time, and they were celebrating like we always do, we have for thousands of years, with food at a wedding, a joyous occasion. And I got to observe people again. And at that table, I could hear people, the cake table with this beautiful cake. I was getting raspberry for myself and chocolate for my boyfriend. I could hear people saying, well, I can't have that because I've been bad today, or I can have that because I've starved myself for 2 days, or my favorite, well, I'm not going to have anything because I just cannot ever have cake, or even the one that says, I'm going to eat as much cake as I want because I've been bad for so long. Good or bad. We look at food as good or bad based on what it is and how we consume it. I decided to do a little social experiment, and I went to my Facebook pages. I do love Facebook. I'm over 50, and I'm a female. And all my over 50 female friends are on Facebook at 2 o'clock in the morning with me. And I did a social experiment, and I said, simply, what is good and what is bad as far as foods go? What is your favorite good food? What is your favorite bad food? Well, the answers came back really varied. Salmon is good. Steak is bad. Steak is good. Hamburgers are bad. Hamburgers are bad. Chocolate is good. Milk chocolate is bad. Dark chocolate is good. But of all of these people, from all walks of life and all socioeconomic backgrounds, nobody, except for 2, because I had coached them before, questioned my premise, is food good or bad? We have to change the way we see food. It is not good or bad, nor are we, based on what we consume. Perhaps it's yummy, delicious, nutritious, fun, joyful. Or, I don't care for that. I shan't consume that. It's not what I want today. It's not good or bad. But moral character is important to me, although I know I eat M&Ms and I'm on the bad list. But it's important to me. And when I got divorced 10 years ago, I made the decision that I wasn't going to remarry because of my moral character. But I happen to be one of those girls who loves to date. I love to date in high school and I love to date in my 40s. It's a fun place to be. Even here in this town, it's a fun place to date. But I didn't want to ever get involved with anybody. So I had a 3-date rule. I go on 3 dates. I'm done, you're done, because I don't want them to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. I might have a few issues. Until about a year ago, and this most amazing man showed up in my life. And he went on 3 dates, and then 4, and then 5, and I kind of fell in love with him, and he kind of fell in love with me. And he asked me, would you be in a committed relationship with me? I had to think about that because I had said no, but okay, sure, I'd love to be a committed relationship, only with one caveat, because I love to date, so I have to keep dating. As a matter of fact, what I'll do is I'll be committed to you for 6 days a week, and 1 day a week I'll cheat. Not a lot, just a little bit, a date. Never more than 3 dates with one guy. And I hope you know I'm joking. I did not ask him that. And I can assure you if I had, he would have said no. He does have strong moral character. But yet we continue to believe that we can cheat on our beautiful bodies. How many times have you read a magazine recently that says, what's the best cheat day food? Or how often do you cheat? It depends on how much weight you'll lose. We learn to use moral words around our bodies, our beautiful bodies that are intrinsically designed to trust ourselves. We know what to eat. Research shows that we know what to eat and how to eat it. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we know about dieting is that it will change the way we deal with food, how our bodies handle food. Many years ago, back in the 40s, there was an experiment called the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. And this experiment was designed to find out how much weight somebody would need to lose to become a starvation victim. And it was done because this was towards the end of World War II, and they knew they were going to have to rehabilitate the people in Eastern Europe. So they took a group of conscientious objectors, men who did not want to fight in the war for philosophical or religious reasons, and they took them into a starvation experiment to find out exactly how much they would need to lose to starve. These men started out at 3,500 calories a day and went down to 1,500 calories a day. And at that point, they stopped the experiment because they thought these men would die. The men expressed having headaches, stomach aches, anger, frustration. They were exhausted, and they were obsessed with food. I don't know about you, but that sounds like me on a diet. When they were rehabilitated back to what they determined healthy calorie consumption of 4,000 calories, these men never resumed normal eating patterns. 40 years later, they were still obsessed with food, and sometimes they would consume as many as 10,000 to 15,000 calories in a day. We can recover, though. We don't have to stay in that place. Somehow, we have gone from a nation of being healthy back in the 50s to being diet obsessed in the 80s when we started understanding what diet and calories were, to being a nation that is obese. I had to look at myself and the nation to see, how did that happen? How did we go from there to here, and for me back to normal? And how can we as a society go back to normal? Because by the year 2040, and I still intend to be alive then, they are predicting that 100% of Americans will be technically obese, meaning 25% over their natural body weight. As a matter of fact, what we know statistically is that 92% of women in this country say they hate their bodies at least once a day. And what used to be a women's issue only is now a men's issue. 60% of men say they're unhappy with their bodies. I have 3 sons. That breaks my heart. And even more importantly to me, 40% of our 10-year-olds are either on a diet, our 10-year-old girls are either on a diet or they want to be on a diet. And I have a girl. I don't want this for our country. What do? We have to change the way we look at food, the way we see it. We are not good or bad intrinsically based on the good or bad foods that we eat. We have to learn to trust ourselves. We know what we need for our bodies. And yes, M&Ms do count as food sometimes. And we have to learn to give unconditional love to ourselves. That baby girl that I love so much, I just want to eat her up, I love her so much. If she were to come to me and say to me, Nana, I'm hungry tonight, my tummy hurts, I have a headache, and I'm kind of grumpy, but I can't have anything to eat for dinner because I was bad today and had that hamburger or that ice cream or those Oreos or the M&Ms. I would not say to her, you're right, you were very bad, go to bed. No, I would take her sweet little face in my hands and I would hold it tight and I would say, oh my Maggie, love of my life, sweetheart, we're gonna get some good, nutritious, yummy, delicious food in your tummy and you're gonna feel better because I love you. We all have someone in our life that we love unconditionally, whether it is our own child or grandchild or the cute little boy down the street who brings us Legos to show us when he gets them. And if they were to come to you, I hope you would say the same thing. But more importantly, I want you to think the next time you are at a cake table or in the mall or sitting down to your favorite dinner and you think, I can't have this because I've been bad today. I hope you remember me taking that face, your sweet little face, and saying, you know what? You are precious. You deserve this. You have the right to take care of your body. We spend so much time worrying about how we look or how we feel in our clothes, which is important. But what are we going to present to other people? And we spend so much time in willpower trying to control tightly what we consume that we spend a lot of that energy focused inward. That day in the mall that I was eating and fighting myself and angry because of those words on my jeans, it really didn't matter to me truthfully in that moment that I was making a difference in the world. But I learned after many years that it really wasn't the size of jeans that I had on. It was the words that I was telling myself. It didn't matter if it was this size or this size. What mattered was that I fell back in love with my life, that I took all that negative energy and all that willpower that I held so tightly inside of myself to control my eating, and that instead of fighting myself, that I turned all that energy around and I gave it back into the community. And when we can learn to change the way we see food and accept ourselves the way we are, we really can make a difference in this world. When we fall in love with our lives, when we fall in love with ourselves, everything changes.